And away we go. Welcome back to the pickup meeting. Today's agenda is shorter than my attention span, so let's move fast. How you doing, Brody?
Good. I liked that one.
Yeah, you never know where it's going to go, and I got a lot of comments about our last episode drop and that one, and so now I feel a lot of pressure to be really, really smart and witty with this.
Yeah, I do the same outro every time, and so you get to have the fun.
Yeah, the creativity, that's the fun.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. Hey, I'm excited. Record Store Day is tomorrow. That gives us kind of an idea of when we're recording. It's a Friday again. And I get to get up early and stand in line and buy some records.
I do not understand this, right? You're going to go buy records that you could buy today, tomorrow.
I can't buy them today. They're not available until tomorrow.
They actually drop on Record Store Day.
Yes, that's accurate.
So this is like your Christmas.
It is kind of like my Christmas.
And how long of a line will you wait in for this?
So I'm going to a shorter line, I think. I have a guy that's in downtown Bloomington, and he's got a smaller store.
When you're saying you have a guy, this is the nice way of saying you have a dealer.
Yes.
Okay, just making sure, same page.
Yeah. And so I'll probably try to get there 5:45, 6 o'clock. Store will open at 8.
In the morning?
In the morning, yeah.
I don't understand.
I mean, you've had to have stood in line to do something fun. That's really the topic here. We got to get you involved. But, you know, we were talking about this yesterday. What's the longest you think you've stood in line or waited in line to do something fun or to get something? Do you remember?
I mean, you know, I'm a Disney adult. So,
which I don't understand.
Right. Because you're strange. But yes. So, I mean, at least in that regard, I will wait in lines for things that are rides. And I can vaguely remember, and stay with us, young folks. Brody, you're going to actually remember this. When you used to have CDs that would be released at midnight or some time frame. And so I would drive from Sparta, Illinois to Fairview Heights, Illinois, because they had a Best Buy, and wait outside to get the records because Best Buy had them first, or the CDs because Best Buy had them first. So this is similar, I guess. And I will say when, what was it? The Beatles 2-disc CDs that came out in like the mid 90s. Like I was there, man. Like
you were?
I was there. I needed to get those, right? Like how could I be a big part of a Beatles cover band without hearing these next cuts?
Wow, Kevin. So you kind of had your own record store day.
Yeah, but then like I grew up and I stopped doing that. Now I go to Disney. So maybe
you're not a very nice person. That's what kind of friend are you even? I don't know you anymore.
I know this is like your Christmas, and I'm kind of crushing it.
Hey, you know, I was thinking about this. I was talking to Catherine about this, and she's like, Brody, don't you remember 2015, the Women's World Cup? We were stuck 15 minutes outside of Canada because customs wasn't ready for all the Americans that were going to go to Winnipeg to watch the women's national team. And we sat in our car, stopped for about 3-4 hours, 15 minutes from the Canadian border. It was a party. I mean, people were out kicking the soccer ball. I mean, we just had a blast. I've got a couple great pictures of me and Kat and the girls on the interstate in the middle of the road waiting to get into Canada, and with all of these other Americans that were rooting for the U.S. women's national team. It was awesome, kind of fun.
Yeah.
Annoying because it's a 17-hour trip to get there, but which made it a 21-hour trip to get there, but still a lot of fun.
I'm not a big line person in general, and I don't know anybody that is.
No, I get it.
I don't think people are like, oh, let me sign on for that. But, you know, the last time I went to Disney, and this was right before Christmas 2 years ago. Yeah, I think that's right. The longest I waited in line for any ride was 25 minutes.
Yeah, I've been to Disney 2 or 3 times in my adult life now, and I don't remember waiting in line all that long to get to the rides.
No, and the next closest thing to me is like sporting venues just to get in or out of a stadium. I can remember lines for that. And so there's some anxiousness of just getting into, like I remember when Rams were in the playoffs. This is like 20 years ago when St. Louis had a football team. Like going into those games, and we would line up outside and be waiting for so long just to get into the playoff game. And I remember that being something, but I'm not a big line person. And to that extent, like when I'm at a reception and then they're like, well, you can go line up and get in the buffet. I'm like, it's going to be there at the end. I will get that thing out. Like I won't even get in line for that.
I get it. You were talking about rides, and my two places that I went to growing up in the 80s, before you could remember, is like when Kings Island had the Beast, which was the newest, biggest, fastest wooden roller coaster at the time. I think we waited an hour in line to get onto that ride, and it was totally worth it, and it still exists. And all the rides at Holiday World, right, the 3 big wooden roller coasters that are pretty world famous that folks come across the world to get to. I've waited in pretty long line to get onto the Voyage, which I think is the best of the 3 and probably one of the longest wooden roller coaster rides. But
are there things that when you're waiting in line that you do? And I will say for our audience today, Brody and I have a script that we use, and I'm just now seeing that Brody had the topic of Record Store Day, and then I was only supposed to chime in with witty reply.
Yeah, you were pretty good, I guess.
Listen, I know my role. I didn't even need to see your script to know that I just needed to be witty.
No, I mean, I think people are just generally excited about the ride, or sometimes you're sitting next to somebody who's never ridden the ride and you're like, it's going to be awesome. And sometimes if it's a little kid that's scared, I try to get them amped up like, hey, this is going to be great, dude. Look how many people are in line. They all come out off this ride okay. Like, it's going to be all right.
So you're the guy from the Progressive commercials that's like being the dad, and like the other people, your wife is like, not your kid. Stop it.
Yes. That's
okay. Just making sure.
Please stop talking. Let's just stand in line in silence.
Now, have you done, like, because you've seen this where you go and you like download the app and you play the little games in the line? Do you know what I'm
I
talking
don't do
about?
any of that.
None of that. Okay.
No, none of that.
All right.
Hey, let's do something else. I mean, it is April, and we haven't really talked about baseball season.
It is baseball season. And I've watched games.
Yeah, me too.
2 of them.
And the Cardinals don't suck yet.
No, they don't suck. So are we happy about how things are going?
I think so.
I know.
They're kind of a fun team.
Our collective friend, Maggie Jane from Texas Tech, sent me a message the other day and said, hey, we're not terrible right now.
No.
That's a win. I'll take that. I thought, going into the season, baseball season, Brody and I both live and die with the St. Louis Cardinals. If you're picking a different option, you're picking the wrong one.
Yes.
Although, Matt, I will say, Matt, our producer's online today with us. Matt, I have been following these finishes for the San Diego Padres, and that is hard to root against. Like, that's been a fun little existence for the last few weeks and as they're playing good ball. So I've been paying enough attention, and the Cardinals have been playing well, and that is making April feel a little bit better.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Now, this will release right before May, and by then, probably dumpster fire. We'll hope not, but it could be bad by that point.
And I know we're on a podcast, but we do need to start planning a trip to get to see the Cardinals together this summer. That needs to happen.
Oh, for sure that has to happen. Yeah.
So we got to get
whether that's in St. Louis or somewhere.
Yeah, we got to get our calendars going there.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. You're right. Note for self.
Let's get scheduled.
Right.
We don't see each other enough, except for right here.
Right. We see each other all the time online, but then that's about it. And in between there, and this has gotten out of control here recently, Brody has decided that it is send Kevin every baseball video he sees on Facebook or wherever. YouTube that also gets to the fact that Willie McGee was the greatest, that current announcers are garbage and the old announcers are fantastic. And what else am I missing? Oh, Albert Pujols was amazing.
And you're never going to believe this. This morning, I watched 9 minutes and 51 seconds of Ozzie Smith defensive highlights. And I almost sent it to you, but I decided not to because I've sent you so much already.
You think I have 9 minutes and 51 seconds to spend with Ozzie?
The greatest defensive shortstop of all time? Yeah, you do.
And if we're being fair, a lot of Cardinals, and then every once in a while, something Indiana based. That's what comes to. And for our audience, in case you didn't know, Indiana won the national championship in football.
Damn it. You said it before I did.
You're welcome. They don't want to hear from you anymore. Like, they've had enough.
Maybe. I haven't.
No, you're still living the dream. And you get to. But you also don't get to complain about Indiana sports for 10 years. That's the rule.
It is the rule. I agree.
You will be 65 the next time you can complain about Indiana sports.
I mean, I think YouTube exists for just that reason, to go back and watch those highlights and get tears in your eyes about them winning. I've done that with the 2011 World Series here recently because what are we now, 15 years and we haven't won a World Series? So you just have to kind of live in the past sometimes.
Yeah. And we can complain because they haven't won in a long time.
Yeah. Speaking of the past, maybe it's time to bring on our guest.
I'm trying to figure out how that was a transition that worked, but we're going to go with it.
I mean, it works great.
Okay.
We're excited to welcome Dr. Emily Jones, award-winning faculty member in kinesiology and recreation at Illinois State University, interim director of the Center for Integrated Professional Development, and someone whose work sits right at the intersection of teaching, learning design, and institutional innovation. How about that?
Wow. That is one of the best intros. Thank you, Brody.
That is a lot on a business card.
Oof.
We were looking at your profile. So many awards, Emily.
Oh, well, I mean, it's the work. When you do the work, well, I guess, or you love doing the work that you're doing. It's nice to be recognized, but frankly, I haven't looked back to that list for a long time, Brody. So, yeah, it's there, I guess.
I think we have to deal with the elephant in the room, and that was I knew you a long time before the awards, the leadership roles, all this work that you've done here at Illinois State University. You were a freshman college athlete at the University of Northern Iowa in the year 2000 on the first University of Northern Iowa women's soccer team. My wife was the first full-time assistant of that team. I actually trained you a couple times because I was a goalkeeper. And so it's pretty amazing to see the evolution from you being a freshman women's soccer team goalkeeper to what you're doing right now. Do you remember those days fondly?
I do. And to be honest, Brody, I had no business walking on to that collegiate sport team.
I don't believe that.
It's kind of funny because when you kind of go back to the Wayback Machine, I've always been interested in sport and have been an athlete, but my sport really growing up was softball, which is wild. But I kind of got into soccer late in the game, but being from Iowa, soccer kind of came on the scene a little bit later compared to some other pretty mainstream sport. And so in my high school years, they started a girls soccer team when I was a junior, and it overlapped with my softball season. And I tried so hard to let that athletic director let me play both sport. And they said, no, you have to choose.
Oh, that's so terrible.
I had to choose. So I chose softball because I had been pretty successful and had some really great teammates and great coaches. But then on the side, played soccer with friends and kind of in a very leisure way and enjoyed it so much. When I caught wind that Northern Iowa was starting a women's soccer team, I thought, what the heck? I had already committed to the school as a student.
Yeah.
And so I attempted to walk on, and I had only goal kept in my rec leagues, but it was like fierce, right? Like you just go out there fearless. And so I had a wild hair to think that perhaps Panther soccer might take a chance on me. And they did.
Yeah. And you did that for a year, and then you actually tried softball too. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. There was a coaching change, and my heart had always been in that sport. And so when there was a coaching change at Northern Iowa for the women's softball team, and I tried out and was brought on the team for women's softball my sophomore year. But I should say the goalkeeping team for women's soccer at Northern Iowa was outstanding, and they had recruited a really, really outstanding goalkeeper from Canada, Anne-Marie Whitco, and
She was amazing.
and I trained together that one year, not only with you, Brody, but Katerina Kakiani, and I learned so much by watching and supporting, and I was a really strong practice keeper. And I'm okay with that. I learned so much, and got to be part of a really special first year team, and then played softball my second year. Yeah.
So let's talk about we can move away from athletics, but I want to talk about being a part of a team. Like I was a kind of a big team sport player too, right? And being a part of that team at that stage of life maybe shapes how we think about effort, feedback, growth. What lessons did you learn from those college years on or off the field that still influence how you approach work now?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know that I've thought about it like that in such a manner, but I think it kind of ties back to that thing I just mentioned, which was I really felt like I had no business being there.
Right.
I had so much to learn, and I positioned myself, I think, in a position where I could learn and absorb as much as I could, and I was just in awe of what dynamic, not only skills, but personalities, the teammates and team members that I had the privilege to be on that team with. And I just found it to be incredibly humbling, and was excited to contribute in ways that made sense. And so being able to look up to and see the strengths of the people around you kind of rises you up too. And you have to take a minute to then recognize where you can contribute. And I think that plays in a couple of different times and points in my life, and also now, is really looking at group dynamics and leaning into people's strengths. That team experience in athletics also gave me the perspective that, they had recruited folks from all across the country and internationally, and I was a local. Home was only about 20 minutes away. And so what about broadening one's perspective and seeing that people looked at, my home and my home state in the way that they did as from outsiders, but also broadening my perspective to that, this isn't the only way to do things. And perhaps even though I had an opportunity to do international student teaching and I had done some international travel, it's like, what a neat way to broaden your perspective by being on a team.
That's awesome.
It hits me here that this is the first guest we've ever had, Brody, where I get to really reflect on this question. And it may not be a question. It may just be a statement. Emily, you're our first guest that remembers when Brody had hair.
I didn't have hair then.
You didn't even then. Okay,
No.
It was gone. All right. So no, we're still in search for it. I just like, man, this is one of these time frames that maybe it was at that moment that Brody had hair. He didn't. Okay, so that now I'm going to get to a real question now that I've taken a hair shot from two bald guys. You moved across a lot of roles and identities since your time as a student athlete and at Northern Iowa. Was there a moment you realized that you want your work to be about learning and impact and not just participation, but transformation and what you're really doing in your role?
Yeah. So that's a wonderfully big question, Kevin. Can I refer to myself as a learner again and then kind of track that forward?
It's awesome. Love it.
So I had the opportunity to be a part of a school university community partnership, again, still with Northern Iowa. When I entered my master's program, Northern Iowa had stepped forward into a partnership with a community school and a corporation that was focused on health, well-being, and fitness. And they created this opportunity for graduate students to integrate fully into the community as school teachers. So I had been a licensed teacher, and we were graduate students, and we were learning how to implement fitness technology into our physical education classroom setting. And the unique part of it was that that technology, those polar heart rate monitors and the software tools that we were using was very much focused on helping the learners, through 12 take more autonomy and agency for their well-being, right? So it wasn't just how could this tool help you understand what your body's doing when you're active and you're exercising, but then it broadened beyond that. And the curriculum wasn't just about PE, but it was about how the community promotes wellness and well-being in the lives of young people. It promotes how our healthcare system and our healthcare providers were influencing the families that lived in those small rural communities.
Yeah.
It was about how our nonprofits like our YMCAs and our Boys and Girls Club provided opportunities to students and families to choose healthy, active lifestyles. So it sort of shifted from, as a learner, I started to see kind of this bigger ripple effect about how so much of what we do is systems work, right? How our environment shapes us, how people shapes us, and really keeping a core focus on how those systems influence behavior change, and perception of self. So zoom ahead, right? As a faculty member who's working with learners who are members of our campus community and who are impacted by so many layers, right? Whether that's housing, residential life, advising, core academic courses, expectations for social engagement, family and financial responsibilities. And yet I see them just in the classroom, not just, but my point is, and sometimes we forget just how much, if we don't look at it as a from the standpoint of how comprehensive one's decisions and how they're influenced by so many factors, you can boil it down and think kind of too narrowly. But if you not understanding what might be impacting that young person in their day-to-day work. So I guess it's that systems perspective, or kind of that ecological perspective of understanding that what we do at each part of the student's experience can have really powerful impact, positive and negative.
I want to keep talking about teaching, Emily, because I know you're going to be humble about this, and I think that's a great skill to have, certainly, but you've won teaching awards almost everywhere you've been, right? And so when you think about your teaching, what do you believe students actually feel when it's working well, right? Like when you've done a great job as a faculty member, how are students receiving that?
Mm-hmm. I hope they feel seen. I hope they feel seen, and they feel that the decisions and choices that I have made have been thoughtfully considered with them in mind. And in doing so, when I engage with students and we position what types of learning experiences or expectations we have, I work really hard to communicate with them the kind of behind the curtain information.
That's great.
Right? The reason we're doing this particular activity, or the reason why these learning experiences are so essential, I make such a deal out of them, is because we really, not only might this prepare you for your next class, but also it's designed to help you be successful in the workforce, right? Or when you're working with schools and communities and kids, because my discipline is really in physical education and health education. Right. And that's a pretty dynamic space in schools and in our society. But I want them to see that, I recognize that, or please understand, these are the reasons I'm doing and have these levels of expectation for you. But if something comes up, please come see me.
Yeah.
Please talk to me. Because I understand that life happens. And in the event that you need some extra time, in the event that you need some extra supports, in the event that the way that I've explained something, or the way that your strength could translate into a different way to submit this assignment, let's talk about it. Because I would love to hear. I'd love to hear that, because it's probably something I haven't thought of. I hope that the time that they spend in classes, they feel that it's not just about the content, but it's about the relationships that they're building with their colleagues, their peers, their relationship that they're having with the field Is
Yeah.
this still right for me? You know? And if not, let's get you somewhere where it makes sense for you.
That community building is so important. I know we talk a lot about that in our first year experience courses, but in every discipline that matters too. It seems that's such a great way to kind of think about the way that we interact with students from a coursework perspective, no doubt.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you started that off with a sentence that I feel like for folks in your position or for teachers and faculty that are excellent at this, you start off with when I engage with students, which isn't always the case in the classroom and feels like the low hanging fruit. But that's part of it too, that you're engaging in that process and engaging in learning, and you care about all of the things that you said after that within your answer. But that engagement is something different than some folks that just say, yeah, I go in and I just talk. That's different. And so I think that's a big part of that process too. Teaching excellence is often an invisible labor. And I think that this is whether it's on campuses or in our political structures or wherever, where they think, you know what, they learn what they need to do and then they just come teach the course and then that's it. And so what are some intentional choices that you make before a course even starts that set the conditions for meaningful learning? And I guess maybe there's a flip side of that, of like, you teach future teachers and you try to ensure that there's a better experience having in the classroom. Are there things that you wish first year educators or early teachers did that would have that impact on students?
Right. Yeah. So I think there's always in designing courses and learning experiences, there's always the really healthy question of like, why are we doing this? And we also have to ask that of ourselves as instructors and faculty members is, is this still fit for purpose? The syllabus that I acquired when I came into Illinois State to teach a particular course, and the learning outcomes that are listed, are these really what's still relevant for what learners need to know when they're going out into schools today?
Yeah.
Why are we doing this? And it can come across very much condescending, and genuinely my heart is never in that space. It's always, we have a very finite amount of time with learners. How can we make the most of it? How can we make sure that our learning outcomes line up with the types of experiences that they're having in the classroom, type of ways that they're engaging with one another, they're engaging with the content, they're engaging with the classroom and spaces and kids, and then kind of building that forward. I had the really great opportunity to work in the state of West Virginia and got to connect with community schools and folks in very rural Appalachian areas. And that was one of the key moments, defining moments in my career, where I realized that I have to adapt the way that I think, the way that I see children and their families and their communities to be more culturally relevant. To meet the learners where they are and prepare my students for the schools and the communities in which they're going to be teaching and having an impact. So in addition to the content, to make sure that they're ready to get out in front of a group of learners, the other piece, Kevin, I think that answers your question is, how are you seeing your students? Do you know your community? Do you know your students? And how can you tailor and adjust your messaging to reach them where they are? And I try to do that with every fresh group of students that I get to interact with, that I have opportunity to build relationships with in my classes. Is this class isn't going to be the same as last year, right? And so, I think that kind of helps anchor me in really kind of why we're doing what we're doing and for whom we're doing the work that we're doing. And that means that I have to change and constantly be willing to say, I'm not sure, but let me try to find that out. And let's change what we're doing to better look forward rather than just do what we've done.
Yeah, I think the challenge is, physical education is really very personal, right? To every individual person. Like, we all know that movement and exercise is valuable, but culturally where that falls and community-wise where that falls is very, very different. I think that makes your job really, really hard, to be completely honest. I mean, and we kind of, I think stereotypically we've poked fun at physical education, but plays such an important role, right, for people to be able to be productive in their lives post K-12, right? Is movement and exercise are really valuable. How do you kind of deal with that stereotype as a faculty member, right? Let's kind of add on to that question.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we really dive into students' backgrounds from the beginning, right? To kind of interrogate or have them interrogate their perceptions of what physical education, physical educators are, what they do, and its role in space. You know, I think there's we do see that it's a bit of a challenge to break a mold, right? Because break a mold from what is kind of in our field, we call it roll the ball out PE.
Yeah.
Right. Where we have physical educators kind of being the ones that are tarnishing the image when they don't invest in excellence in teaching and culturally responsive pedagogies, and instead just do it the way that they saw it done, or because they were perhaps maybe more skillful or had an interest or affinity towards sport, then they kind of lean more towards like, well, I liked it, so doesn't everyone else?
Right.
And wow, that's sometimes an eye opener, because the learners who have gotten a chance, and not just here at Illinois State, but at other institutions as well, when you ask them like, what drew you to this career, what drew you to this profession, it's their own perception, right? They're like, I had such a great teacher coach. I love sport and I want to instill that in the future generation. And that's really a beautiful thing. However, you teach the entire gamut of our student population.
Right.
You know, you're kind of a public health professional,
right?
Because you don't, different from sport coaching, who work with perhaps a niche population. Our physical educators in our gymnasiums are working with children who have special needs, whether that's physical, mental, or emotional. We have students who are highly skilled. We have students who have significant self-image and body image issues or beyond. We have children who are coming into our gymnasium who don't know where they're getting their next meal. We see every child in the school, because physical education or health and health ed, often music and art education, we see the entire student population. And we see them, Brody, this gets a little bit at what you said. Physical education is, for some, very intimidating because it's very visual. Your person, your physical body is on stage for everyone to see.
Yeah.
If you can throw, kick, catch, run, skip, or otherwise, you can see everybody else in the environment being successful or not successful. And that's really vulnerable. Now, if you're the kid or young person who's really good at it, great. But if you're not, you're still on stage. So that empathy, that understanding for our future teachers to say, you were great. You probably had a great experience and you loved going to PE. You were the one who ran in there and you were the one that ran out and you were the one that was picked first. But guess what? There are other people who didn't have that same experience, and you get the opportunity to teach and help them feel connected, welcomed, seen. And you know what? Maybe you lean into some things that are less traditional. Maybe you know that some of your students, because your community is skate parks, maybe you bring in skateboarding into your PE curriculum, not biking. You know, so I think I perhaps got off track there a little bit, but
it makes a lot of sense. What you've said made a lot of sense. Absolutely, I totally agree.
And it's one of these things, we have this conversation, and before we started recording today, Emily, you were mentioning that, you know, that this is a little bit of a different environment because often we're talking about advising and student success. And I think about this from when I used to teach a training and development program for faculty advisors. And the very first question we would ask them is, how are you advising? And they said, well, my advisor at this institution taught me how to do this, so now this is how I do it this way.
Yeah.
It's the reason why instructional design, learning design, instructional technology, training and development programs are so critical to what we do. So I think there's some overlap there that our audience is going to be interested in hearing, because these programs and that development matter an immense amount.
Yeah, and we're so shaped by our formative experiences, right? So in the field that I work in, that's a theory that's often referred to and referenced to help understand this is occupational socialization theory, in that much of which we experience in our formative years, in our youth or adolescence, what we observe, we perceive as to be, that's what a doctor does. That's what an advisor does. That's what a teacher does. That's what a police officer or law enforcement person does, because of the glimpse in which you saw it as a young person.
Yeah.
And then if you get into a training experience, sometimes you're peeking behind the curtain going, oh, I did not realize. Different. And, kind of interrogating those warrants or those beliefs at the start of one's training experience or otherwise, it's kind of hard to get away from what perhaps might be some not so good practices. And introduce evidence-based and evidence-informed practices, practice those, reinforce those. But then once they get a job and they finish that training program, what type of environment are they going into? Right. And occupational socialization kind of interrogates that as well, are they going back into a space that kind of washes out what they learned during their training? Yeah. Or do they go into a space where they can innovate and move beyond what they thought and implement some of those practices? And so it's very fascinating.
Emily, let's transition maybe a little bit. You've stepped into some administrative leadership roles here the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. Right now, you're serving as the interim director for the Center for Integrated Professional Development. What parts of your faculty identity were most important for you to carry into these roles?
That's great. So I think that recentering the student really has been key, and thinking critically about how is it that what we're doing not only influences the student, but then also the instructors and the support staff that interact with those learners that we have on campus. The Center for Integrated Professional Development really focuses on excellence in the classroom, innovation, in our class environments and our teaching and learning spaces. And I mean, as a teacher educator, I very much believe that teachers and instructors have a high value role in that exchange, but it's not just it's not just the instructor. You can have really great instruction that hits flat, or if it's not focused in on, again, that the learner and what it is that those students need to be successful. And so I think really trying to stay rooted in, yes, we want to support our instructors, and we want to make sure that they have the resources, expertise, and knowledge and confidence to do the work really exceptionally well. But keeping that learner focused is pretty essential.
Love that.
In the role that I sit in, I think one of the most common questions I hear is about transition into varying aspects of career. And you touched on it a little bit there, but I'm curious, as you've moved from faculty into institutional leadership, what are the things that have caught you off guard that maybe you didn't know? And really, we hear this a lot from folks that move from frontline roles to leadership and just having to do things differently. But I'm wondering if you've had those standout moments where you think, aha, I didn't know this, and this is helpful for how I'm going to move forward in my career.
Right. So I think the link back to systems thinking is probably the best tie-in there for me. Is I think we kind of create a lot of roadblocks sometimes for unnecessarily so, because it's the way it's been done, and we haven't maybe thought about, is this still the way that we should be doing business? And in higher education, sometimes business, that terminology feels funny for some folks, but is this most efficient and effective? Are we positioning a process to be a priority over the people who it's impacting? And so I think some of the small changes, I have had the opportunity to be able to kind of zoom out and look at things more holistically and go, oh, you know what? We're not as responsive as we should be, because why? When a student makes a request, or when a faculty member says, we need this, or department chair or unit leader says, our faculty are struggling with this topic. What types of supports do we have? Can we implement a session, a training session, a series that would address this issue? We have to go, are we responsive enough? I mean, can we move quickly enough to address that need? Or does it take 6 months to plan it? And that 6 months to plan it is, sometimes that amount of time is needed, and other times it's, no, we need to be more nimble. We need to be responsive to our community, and understand the community in a manner. And I'm saying campus community, students, faculty, staff, and so forth, because CIPD is a service unit. And so how can our processes really be refined and interrogated, again, I'm using that word, to, thoughtfully, to say, we need to evolve a bit, and we can.
Yeah, you're really talking about, we were going to ask this question, but you've really answered it. Like, we're really talking about how to navigate between innovation and tradition, right? In higher education, like that tension that exists between, this is the way we've always done it, versus how do we meet the needs of the student right now?
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think that point is well taken in your response, no question.
One other element to it that I have found, and perhaps this is the researcher in me, is I really do like to look at data.
Yeah.
I really like, and it's been really fascinating to me sometimes, like that transition is, as a faculty member, I can look at my course level data, or the data that's influencing me, my students, or within the program, and how they're matriculating through and persisting through a program, for instance. But being able to look more broadly at the data and the tools that we have available to make some informed decisions about those, tweaks or adjustments that might need to, or can show us this is no longer an efficient process, and we need to work to find a way to remove this barrier, and kind of help students to matriculate through. Perhaps another thing that helped was, as a faculty member, I have the ability to kind of pick research interests that align with things that excite me. And at one point, one of the areas, which was out of necessity, was declining numbers and enrollments within our programs. And sometimes self-proclaimed faculty members can kind of put our heads in the sands, and the students who show up for us to teach is who we teach. And when physical education and health and education enrollment numbers were kind of tanking there for a while, we were wondering, will our program survive with the number of students and faculty that we have to serve? And so recruitment and retention became an area of research interest of mine.
Awesome.
And it broadened my perspective while I was on faculty at West Virginia, and then brought those same questions and approaches here. Is faculty members really have a key critical role to play, can play, in recruitment, retaining, and helping students be successful and persist, but we can't do it ourselves. And so getting out of our hallways or our siloed disciplines and say, oh, you know what, we've got admissions, we've got a great admissions team. Oh, we've got great recruiters who understand the needs of students. And we started to do some research on kind of understanding the student's journey, their decisions to pursue not only a career choice, but college choice, and took it from a kind of a systematic approach to exploring how students found out about the institution, what motivated them to pursue the particular career, what sorts of network influences contributed to those decisions. And then once they made that decision, how did they navigate through some of the challenges of applying for, being admitted, transitioning to the institution, going through the gen ed requirements, and then finally making it to, as a junior, or after 70 credit hours or something, into their major. And so trying to understand that journey that students were on and what we could do to get out of their way.
It's great.
I learned this of you, right? Because we just met today. And you may know this, but Brody is also an award winner. So I'm just surrounded by people that win awards today on the show. It's kind of a wonderful world to be a part of. I'm surrounded by excellence here. But I'm curious how recognition has shaped your sense of responsibility to students, colleagues, or your broader institution in what you do, because you kind of get a little, I don't know, like you get that spotlight. And so then I feel like there's got to be a little pressure. Brody's always talking about pressure about being amazing. And I'm like, man, just be you, just keep being amazing, my man.
I don't know about that.
Well, I'll take it back to kind of the team sport, right? The idea that, teaching and recognitions for teaching really is kind of a collective celebration. It's a collective celebration that, unfortunately, sometimes just gets bestowed onto a single person. Better case scenario gets bestowed on a team. Because some of those that recognition for teaching excellence or otherwise wouldn't have been possible if I didn't have colleagues across the hall that I could say, I'm stuck.
Yeah.
Right? Or I'm thinking about trying this, or would you share these ideas with me? Or I don't know anything about this. And so the colleagues and the folks that have been a part of those awards, I think that's kind of what's missing maybe from our awards and our recognition for teaching specifically. And you see it more and more in research and scholarship where publications are of teams, right? And everyone plays a really critical role or needs to articulate their attribution and how they contributed. I wish teaching awards or recognition awards allowed or kind of recultured into that framing of how did you get here and who else needs to be on this pedestal with you, kind of looking back and saying, pointing to the people who helped shape your thinking and what it is you're able to do.
I love that.
Yeah. I mean, that's a way to stay grounded for sure, right? It's a good reminder that, like, when I talked about my award at the reception, the one thing I said is, look, this is about connection, right? It wasn't really about winning an award. It was about trying to be better in my job. And I do think that's such a great approach, Emily. And I love the idea of the collective nature of that process, right? Which is really, really important. It speaks to you as a professional and as a continual learner, right? Like we do get stuck sometimes. How have you handled those kinds of spaces? Like, if we think about, like, maybe this is the last question before we move to fun, Kevin, but if you think about, getting stuck in the classroom, like what have you learned from those times when things didn't work,
Well, in the spot, getting stuck, I have found that it is the best to say, I've made a mistake. Or let's just take a moment and step back because we need to pivot. We need to rethink what this is, right? So in the moment, in front of future teachers, full professor saying, whoa, I've made a mistake, or I failed to do this, or I have failed this. Just like when kiddos, young people can experience an adult saying, I'm sorry, I made this mistake.
Yeah.
I think it creates it is okay to not have it all together.
Yeah.
And yet I'm going to take a minute and let's collect our thoughts. Where did we go wrong here? And then let's not just throw the towel in and say, everybody go home. Let's try to figure this out. Where can we walk this forward together? Right. I might have to take a minute. You all maybe go get a bio break, or I'm going to have to take a second and kind of reflect, but then let's come back and let's try to figure this out. And I think when people get stuck, if they go, well, to heck with it, I'm just going to pitch that, or try to push through without taking a second to, kind of be reflective, and use whatever information that they have whether it's the people or otherwise, to say, like, let's figure this out together.
That's great.
All right, we got a couple fun questions. I think I know which one Brody's going to ask before we go to lightning round. So I'm going to go with this one. For our audio audience, if you're not able to see Emily in her office today, this next question is a little surprising because it says that you have 75 indoor plants that you like to tend and propagate. And I'm like,
It's true.
you have 2 wonderful windows in your office. And I'm like, where are these plants at? And so
They're in their third window, which is beyond my machines.
you have 3 windows. That's another layer of this. But all right, so
We're all jealous. I mean, I have great windows too. I look right into the quad. So I feel you, Emily. That's for sure.
but as somebody that doesn't have any plants in his office other than fake ones that won't die, right? Like what is your guidance here? Like you get a love from this, but like help us people out that just kill plants.
Oh my gosh. Well, I kill plenty. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry to say, audience here, but I love them. One of my like sanctuary spaces in town are the nurseries and the botanical spaces and our kind of living gardens. I do, I probably overwater. I think I overtend, and that's what ends up killing them. I spend too much time paying attention to them. And so the ones that I neglect tend to be the ones that grow the most, and then I can propagate and share those out. My mother would it was the weirdest thing. She had this Christmas cactus. You might be familiar with that type of plant, and she would put that thing in her closet for like 2 months, and it was like this Christmas cactus that would bloom every, like, not only like a winter holiday, but like Easter and my birthday and like Mother's Day and any, like Talk Like a Pirate Day. It would bloom every holiday. And I eventually said, what is this? And she said, and this is kind of a fun, but also it sticks with me, is you've got to stress them. She'll say, even in life, right, you've got to stress it. Like your roots will grow deeper when you're in a moment of stress. And so for that plan and for her, like that life lesson is sometimes you got to kind of let them dry out, or you got to put them in the dark for a while. And that builds that resilience, and you not forgot about them. And then they really can flourish. So I think back to that a lot.
That's a great little lesson there. And I have to say, if your guidance for me is to put plants in my closet, spoiler alert, they're never coming out. They're going to die there. But I like your lesson. That was good.
Yeah, it is pretty good. So you're into traveling and exploring new spaces. What's a place you've been to here recently that you were like, yeah, this was awesome?
Oh man. So just last week, I attended a research meeting in LA, but then for the weekend post conference, we traveled up the coast to the Santa Ynez Valley, and this is about an hour north of Santa Barbara, right on the coast, and it's so lush, and that Santa Ynez Mountains and the Santa Maria and area is just, you've got the ocean, you've got these mountainous hills, these lush waterfalls that you can hike. The winds coming off the ocean have carved these wonderful caves that you can walk through and see these ocean views. I mean, listen, for all the listeners who are urban and city dwellers, bless you. I needed to get out of that concrete space and into an environment. And another plug is Iceland. Just talk about otherworldly, where you've got mountains and ocean and volcanoes and just the natural phenomena all colliding in one space, and it was just beautiful.
That's amazing. Yeah,
Brody, I think it's time.
Yeah, we got to do the lightning round, don't we?
Lightning round.
What is your favorite place on this campus to think?
Oh, I walk the quad a lot. You can see me just walking all the way around the quad, thinking and or the 4th floor of Miller Library.
Oh, I've never been there.
Oh, you should go. Lots of windows.
Okay.
All right. Do you have a go-to pump up song?
Eye of the Tiger, baby.
Oh,
There you
yes.
go.
Love it. Love it. Do you coffee or tea, Emily?
Give me an IV of coffee all day long.
Yes. Sorry, Kevin.
This
You're
one's
wrong.
so deep. Yeah, I'm wrong. I know. No coffee ever in my life. Best advice you've ever received? The plant one was pretty good. So,
My gosh.
I know.
Best advice. You're not going to make everybody happy.
Amen.
Yeah. Book or podcast you'd recommend the most right now?
When Women Were Monsters. No, When Women Were Dragons. This is the book that I'm in right now.
Awesome. What's it about?
It's about women standing tall and being strong and not. It's a fictional story about how there was a period of time that women stopped taking licks or hits from society or the relationships they were in, and when they had just had enough, they turned into dragons, and they might have been a little bit
Mean.
yeah.
Fierce. You
Yes.
said fierce. You used that. We used that word, or you used that word early in the show, and I like that. Okay. That's good. What else, Kev? Anything?
What is one word? This is my last one. One word to describe this season of your life.
One word. Growing.
It's great.
Love it.
That's so hard.
Yeah. So, Emily, I'm going to ask a fun question that's very inside jokey. I have a blanket that I have that is like 20 years old, and it's torn to shreds, but it has a lot of Northern Iowa stuff on it. And one of the things it had on it was the top 10 things for that women's soccer season, the inaugural women's soccer season. And there's a great story about Catherine and Linda, who were the two coaches, and Katerina was there as well. About a rain delay where you ended up in one of the two vans, and there was a van of solitude with Coach Whitehead and like this party wagon van with my wife. Which van were you in, and what was that like? Do you remember that?
Solitude.
Oh no, that's
terrifying.
It was terrifying.
I think it was fitting for those two dynamic personalities housed within both of those vans, and I think I probably found myself in the solitude one, probably because I was like last to get to the vans because I was cleaning stuff up or trying to otherwise. But yeah, that I think that's where I was. I remember that.
Oh yeah. Boy. Well, Emily, it's been great to have you on.
Yes,
and
you
get
so
you
much.
Connected. And I'm super pleased that you were our first Illinois State University guest. You've been an amazing guest on the show, and so we're so grateful to have had you on.
Well, thank you so much.
So nice to meet you.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure, and I appreciate the work that you all do and for sharing a little bit of time with me today.
Thanks, Emily.
Yep.
Oh,
how wonderful.
I loved that so much.
You know, I love certain parts of this, right? Like the connection to Illinois State for sure, you know, and the fact that this is somebody that you see often. I mean, this is the first guest from either of our home campuses.
Yeah.
And so that was lovely. And then, you know, I got this question when I was walking campus today, and they said, hey, you know, like you had a Murray State guest on the show the last time. And I said, yeah. And they're like, how did you end up at Murray? And like, where do you get such affinity from it? And I was thinking about that and I answered the question, but then it was one of these things where, you know, I think back to like how people talk about their alma mater. Both you and Emily had the same perspective of Northern Iowa that I have of Murray, right? That it is just this special place and time that we remember so fondly. And I love that about this journey of getting to reflect on the journey, but then also these institutions that were so special to us.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, like, one of the things I really appreciate, right? You know, I'd been in higher ed a long time when I came here to Illinois State. But one of the things that I'll always be really grateful for, right? You know, you come to a new place and you kind of have to prove yourself and do all those things. But Emily was one of the first persons that reached out to me when I got the job and was here on campus. And, she's like, you and Kat and me, we need to get together and have dinner. And it just felt so grateful to have a familiar face from the past who kind of knew what you were about. So I'm just really grateful for that. And that's kind of, it's kind of the way that I've approached that relationship now. When we see each other on campus, it's always how you're doing and kind of revisiting and making sure that her kids are doing okay. And we need to do more of that, to be completely honest. She's one of the good ones for sure.
I love it. Speaking of good ones, let's do our top 3.
Let's do our top 3. And we're going to stick with baseball theme, I think. Don't you think?
Sticking in the sporting theme. And
But
you said baseball stadium foods. Are we just saying stadium foods?
sure, that's
Okay.
fine.
All right. Well, do you have a top 3? Am I starting? You guys starting here? How we
Do
doing?
you have your 3?
Oh, yeah, I'm good.
Let's do it. Let you go first.
All right. So some of this is in sentimental value, right?
Sure.
Like I can remember old Busch Stadium when we had season tickets pre the strike and going to section 216. I really want to say it was 216. And like there was a joint that we would just stop by there and get a burger. And it was like every time we went to the game, we would get a cheeseburger. And so stadium food, like I instantly go to the cheeseburger as being something I have to have. And I'm not necessarily a hot dog guy. If I'm going to go into the family like that, it's going to be a brat, but I'm going to go with burger here. Now, second on this list for me, and I don't do this often because my stomach would hate me, is the loaded nachos. I mean, like, let's go. Like, just get those loaded nachos, and they are absolutely delicious, and I love that. And then I don't know that I go a lot beyond that from the food standpoint. Like the thing that came to mind is, and I've been several times to Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati. They have unbelievable chicken strips. It's the dumbest thing that is something that stands out to me, but they have great chicken strips. But I think going to games with Braden, and we would, eat all the things you can get kids, and they want this and they want that. Like I remember him getting Italian ice, right? Like that flavored ice being this experience of that. So I'm putting it in my top 3 stadium foods. It's kind of a drink because it would melt, But then also, like for whatever reason, every time the Italian ice person came by, I got Hall & Oates Private Eyes stuck in my head. And so like I'm singing Private Eyes, except with Italian ice coming for you. It's just, I'm just having so much fun with it. So I at least got to mention that as a top 3.
That's hilarious. I'm pretty simple. I mean, when I go to Busch Stadium, they do a bacon wrapped hot dog, and it is fantastic.
Yeah.
And I always get that. That's my go-to when I go to St. Louis. I always have to have the bacon wrapped hot dog, a little mustard, a little relish, and I'm good to go.
Calorie free too is what I hear. I don't know if that's true or not. So, yeah.
Pretty protein heavy, pretty nitrate heavy. I mean, I won't know who I am by the time I'm a 80-year-old person, but I will have enjoyed that time at Busch Stadium. That's for sure. I love nachos too, and I would eat loaded nachos, but there's something about just putting some jalapenos and dipping that stuff into the cheese as well. I don't need the meat, but I mean, I agree with you. Those are great. I'm always dressed really well. I get nervous if we have the whole kit and caboodle stuffed nachos that some of that's going to get on my jersey, and I'm not very happy about that.
Yeah, let's be honest. You could put that cheese on a tire and you'd still eat it. So
it is true. and then third, like I have this affinity. Look, nothing to me when you go to a baseball game, nothing was better than getting the soft serve ice cream in the baseball cup. Yep. And maybe putting some chocolate fudge on top of that, a strawberry, like banana split, whatever it is, and then being able to take that baseball cap home. I've got a couple of those in my on my bookshelf. That's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are good ones.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun there.
Yeah. Well, this has been great. Send us home.
All right. That was it for this edition of the Pickup Meeting, gang. I hope all of your meetings, whether they're formal or pickup style, are as fun and as meaningful as this one. Until then, the next one, I guess, or until the next one, let's just do good and be nice. How about that?
Be nice.